Hey guys, welcome back to episode 3 of Better World Podcast. And I did not want to make any excuses for not getting this next episode out. Even though I'm making dinner right now, I figured I can film this and get it done while making dinner. And then we're done with episode 3. I've heard statistically it's most podcasts don't make it past like 4 episodes, and a large majority don't even make it past the first episode. So I just said I'm going to do whatever I can to try and just get this third podcast out there. I wanted to have only guests on for each episode, but I realized it's a little difficult to get a guest on for every show when I want to film an episode. So I thought maybe I can share, make it more entertaining possibly whenever it's just my own self, and that way I can have a little more fun. But when I have guests on, maybe be more intentional and kind of have the deeper side of conversation. So anyways, I wanted to just make a 5-10 minute video for this episode, just kind of talking about some of the things that I've been interested in lately. And I wanted to first start off with this podcast I've been listening to that I found a few weeks ago. I've only listened to like 5 or 10 episodes, but it's one of my favorite podcasts to just learn. It's called Everything Everywhere Daily by a man named Gary. I can't remember his last name exactly right now. It starts with an A, I believe. But I've listened to about 10 of the podcasts, and he just gives a great overview in about 10 to 15 minutes of, world events or a certain topic in life. And so I just want to share that. It's been great, and figured that was interesting enough. Hopefully some of you will go check it out. But I've really enjoyed it. Oh, I got to take a pause break to check on the food. So far, so good. So anyways, just for a couple examples, something that's relevant right now is, my Apple Watch, is the World Cup. And I just listened to an episode about the 1986 World Cup. I believe 1986. And I just learned about Diego Maradona. I think that's how you say his last name. But anyways, I learned about that and why Argentina, just saw him as their soccer icon after that World Cup. Learned about the controversies, but also his golden goal, I think it's called. Anyways, I learned about that World Cup. There's also an episode of why American soccer or the United States don't do amazing. Oh, gotta check food again. And so there's another podcast. Sorry, I had to pick up. I got interrupted. So I'm just going to pick up here. There's another podcast about why the United States does not perform that well in the World Cup compared to other countries, when the United States typically performs very well in a lot of other sports, like at the Olympics and whatnot. And it essentially went into explaining how in Europe, a lot of the leagues and cities that these professional teams are in, the clubs themselves actually take on the financial burden and risk of a lot of these players from the time of their youth. So from the time they're about 6, even younger, they can, like from 2 even, they can be in like recreation, like clubs that teach them the basics. But at about 6, 7 and above, they're training the youth, the best players they can find. And then they go on to play for these teams and these clubs and these, cities and countries, and that's how they turn out such high performers. And that's common in South America too, I believe, in most of the countries too. So, anyways, it's completely different system in the U.S. where just like a lot of sports, if you want to play at that higher level, the financial burden falls on the family to be in a more expensive league or club or team or organization where you have to pay thousands of dollars or however many. That financial burden is just on the family. So there's a lot of talent out there that maybe doesn't get developed in the United States, that could be, and just not developed probably as well as in Europe. So anyways, that was interesting to learn, 10, 15 minutes. There is just to give you some examples of some other things I learned. I felt like I got a really good just a good basic overview of like the Cuban Revolution and just kind of understanding that more so than before I listened to it. The Indian Rebellion of like 1890 something. Just understanding that a little more. What are some other ones? Tiananmen Square, and just understanding that a fact that stood out to me. There's a lot on it, but most of the violence actually happened in the streets because a lot of the protesters were trying to keep the military from entering the square, and that's where a lot of the violence seemed to occur rather than actually in the square. But I just remember seeing that in a wall in my high school and not even really knowing what it was about, but I just remembered that Tank Man photo. And I just feel like there's certain aspects that I think it's important to have those pieces of history learned and talked about and recorded. I mean, that wasn't even that long ago, and I probably didn't know it to the extent that I should have known it as a youth. And so I just think it's good to share historical information and knowledge and learn as much as we can and pass it on to the youth. And I think it's important to remember, right? And so you can learn, not make the same mistakes, and just you can actually have change in your community, your country, and beyond. And so, anyways, kind of went down a rabbit hole, which will probably happen often. But sorry for the close up. Anyways, that's been a fun podcast. What are some other things? Recently, the World Cup's happening. I've recently jumped on the bandwagon of becoming interested in soccer, and I've never really been interested in soccer before, but I watched the Argentina versus England game and was rooting for Messi, total bandwagon, but it was a fun game to watch. Felt bad for England, but that was so fun to watch. So I'm rooting for them. My prediction is 2-1 in the final, Argentina winning. I think Argentina will score at about 40 minutes and Spain will score at about 60 minutes, and then I think Argentina is going to score around the 85-minute mark. That's just my prediction. Either that or maybe 3-2 Argentina, but I'm going with the first one, 2-1. And UFC fight, McGregor. I think most likely he was just wanting to go out with a bang and show, make a statement, and I just hope he has a speedy recovery. And a location switch. Okay, so I had to take a little bit of break. All right, let's get these lights back on. Okay, there we go. And anyways, as we wrap up this first episode, I realized definitely parts of it got pretty boring as I watched back the first few clips, but that's just the learning process. I'm going to try to keep it engaging, even if it's not always entertaining. I'm going to do my best to help, hopefully, the audience learn and take in important information, intriguing information, and impactful information. The 3 I's of this podcast. Just kidding, that's I'm not probably gonna stick with that. But yes, I'm excited. Sorry it was just kind of talking about random stuff. Probably was not that interesting. Probably about 4 people will ever watch this totally through, but it's just about getting these episodes out and making it happen. So anyways, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.